Hello there and welcome back to my channel, or if this is the first video of mine you are seeing, then welcome. I thought it would be a really cute video idea to shop my stash and pull out 14 palettes that are perfect for Valentine's Day. Now, mind you, some of these palettes are discontinued at this point, but this is just something for fun, just to, just to use what I already have, pull out some palettes that maybe I haven't used in a long time, get some more use out of them for this month. All of these have like a pink or red, or some have peachy pinks to them, maybe a little bit of berry in them as well. But this video just, hopefully it will encourage someone out there just to shop their stash, see what they already have for Valentine's Day. I will be talking about drugstore and high-end palettes, and I will have timestamps listed for you below. And while I'm talking about each of these palettes, I will have the swatches for you coming up too, so you can see all of these palettes swatched out. They are swatched in natural lighting. So if all of that sounds interesting, let's go ahead and get started. The first palette that I want to mention is this one from e.l.f. Cosmetics. This was when they did their Dunkin' Donuts collection, and this is the Strawberry Frosted with Sprinkles eyeshadow palette. This is just a really soft palette that is perfect for Valentine's Day if you want just a really light, dainty pink look for Valentine's Day. I think this is so perfect. It's a really these shadows are just really soft, which is really what I tend to love. I love soft eyeshadow looks. Even shades that are even more pigmented or more colorful, I still sheer them out as much as possible to give me that softness because that's just what I like. It's what I prefer, especially on an everyday basis. And I think this is just a really cute, simple palette to be able to get a really pretty pink look. Next one, this is the only one that I feel like will pull more red. I'm not the biggest fan of red eyeshadow, but I do think that this little palette is perfect. If maybe you do like red, but maybe you don't want a lot of it in your collection, then this is perfect. This is a little 5-pan palette. This is from Profusion. This is their Romantic Rose eyeshadow palette. And as you can see, it has these really pretty, like more red tones in it, and then like this more kind of like deep, like a burgundy brown almost. Now this palette does have a pressed glitter, so that might be the one thing that keeps you from really being interested in this palette. But other than that, I think it's a perfect option. Even if you don't use this shade, you can still see some of the other really pretty Valentine's Day-esque looks that you can create with this palette. I know that I've used it quite often. I've done looks with it on Instagram. I've done looks with it on here, I believe, before. I'm not sure about that one. So I do think this is a good option, especially if you do like red shades, but maybe you want like a more smaller curated palette. I think this is a good option. The next palette is the one that I am wearing on my eyes today, and that is the ColourPop and Forever Floral eyeshadow palette. And I'm just wearing these three shades right here. This in my crease, this in the outer corner, and then this like on the inner part of my lid. This is just a really stunning, just simple palette. I love that you kind of have the pinky shades in here, but then you also have like these more like peachy pink tones as well in there in case you don't want like a true pink. Maybe you want a little bit of warmth to it. I think this is a perfect option. Definitely a really good quality palette. It's one of my favorites from ColourPop, and I just love this soft color scheme. Is simply so beautiful, and that's why I had to definitely create a look with it today. I haven't used it in a while, so it was nice getting some more use out of it again. The next one is perfect not only in color story but also the name. This is from Wet n Wild. This is their Heart and Soul eyeshadow palette, which I thought that was a perfect name, especially for a Valentine's Day-esque palette. You have these really pretty pinky peaches in here, but then you also have more of like these berry tones and some shades that lean a little bit more on the pinky side. But then you also have some pops of neutrals as well in case, maybe you're not wanting to do a pink look. Maybe you just want a really plain, simple, neutral look for Valentine's Day, and that's perfectly fine too. I like that this palette gives you the option for that as well. And these little palettes from Wet n Wild, these 10-pan palettes, they're really nice quality, and they're only like $5, $6, I believe. They might be a little more than that now. I'm not sure. It's been a long time since I purchased one of these, so I just think this is a perfect option for this month. Just simply really beautiful, really nice formula to work with. And last is also another one from Wet n Wild. This was when they had their My Melody and Kuromi collection, and this is the My Melody eyeshadow palette. And I just think that these tones are so perfect because you have these really pretty pinks, but then you also have some of these purpley shades in here as well. I know that you can also do purple for Valentine's Day. I see that color a lot around this time. as well, including like, you know, the pinks, the reds, and then you see pops of berry, pops of purple, which I think is a nice touch too. But then this palette also has like the more neutral shades as well, in case you want to do something more softer, more subtle, or if you want to kind of, you know, bolden it up with some of these more deeper shades in the palette, then you definitely can. I think it's a really cute little versatile palette. It's sad that you can't get this one anymore because it is really cute. Like, the packaging was just so darling. And it was a really nice quality palette as well. I never struggled with it at all when the times when I was using it. It's one that I definitely want to use again because I haven't lately, so that's another reason why I wanted to pull this one out. Okay, that is all of the drugstore and more affordable eyeshadow palettes that I have, so let's move on over to the high-end palettes. Okay, we're first going to start out with this one from Natasha Denona. Of course, I had to include her Mini Love eyeshadow palette. I mean, this is just like a really cute, curated little palette that has like the little pops of like pinky berry shades in it. I think it's perfect for Valentine's Day, and of course it was released with Valentine's Day in mind. I know as a companion palette to her larger Love palette, but I wanted to include this one, of course, because even if you didn't have like her larger Love palette, then I think this would give you something really quick and simple for Valentine's Day. And because it is more of a curated palette, you don't even have to think about the look you're going to do. There's all the shades laid out perfectly for you in this little palette. I want to say this was actually a little limited edition palette. I'm not sure about that. I'd have to check, and if it is still available, then of course I will have it linked for you below, but I think it's a really cute little palette. I do personally like the larger Love palette better than this, but that's just personal preference. I just like having that variety in that larger palette, but this one is a really nice option to have. Next is one that might, you know, it does have some pinks in it. It might not be, you know, someone's go-to for Valentine's Day. It looks more like a springy palette, which of course it's pastels, but that is the Huda Beauty Pastels Rose eyeshadow palette. But I just adore this little palette. I love how soft it is. I'm a big fan of pastel shades because that's what I love. It's just they're already soft for you. They might have a little bit of color, but they're already soft. They're already really easy to work with. Now, the four shimmers in this palette are more like topper shades. They don't really have like a huge impact on the eyes, but really lately, that's what I've been gravitating towards, just putting a matte shade all in the crease, all over the lid, and then just scattering a shimmer over the top of it, not wearing it full opaque. So honestly, this palette has been one I've actually been reaching for quite often, and I don't know, I just think it's so cute, and I love these types of shades, this soft pink, just delicate vibe. I really adore this one. Next, this palette is just perfect because, well, first of all, the packaging reminds me of Valentine's Day and just the color story as well. This is the Sweet Tart eyeshadow palette, and just these beautiful pinky rosiness to these shades. They're just simply lovely. These shades are just so nice. They're so easy to work with. Such a really soft formula, really soft and buildable. And even the shimmer shades in this palette just feel like really buttery, creamy. I'm not sure what word you want to use for them. I just think this is a really gorgeous palette overall. I believe they still do sell this one as well as the more warm tone companion palette that went along with it, but this is a perfect Valentine's Day palette. I mean, just that cute packaging and the fact that it does say Sweet Tart. I just think that's perfect. This is a just perfect palette. The next one is another one from Tarte. This is their Tartelette Juicy eyeshadow palette, and just more of these really beautiful pinky tones. These shades just speak to me. Regardless of whether or not it's Valentine's Day, these are some of my most favorite shades. I love pink. Pink is my favorite color, and these just... There's something about these really beautiful pink neutral palettes that just pull me right in. I feel like I have so many of them. Probably shouldn't, but I just can't help it. I see these palettes like this being released and I want them. And I feel like Tarte definitely is one of those brands that does a lot of the pinky neutral shades, and I want them. I want them all. I know that if you have one big palette from them, you more than likely have all of them, but I don't care though. I want them because they're just so pretty. I mean, they're pretty to look at, and I love the packaging on this one, that really soft pink. I love pink and white, as you can see from my background. And I really love Tarte's formula as well. I just like how easy it is to work with. It's easy to blend. It's soft. This is a perfect palette. The next palette I definitely had to include, and it's kind of, I think I've got fingerprints on it because it's... Let me kind of wipe it off here a little bit. But this is the Patrick Ta Major Dimension 2 eyeshadow palette. I mean, this palette is like the rosy neutral palette of my dreams. I think this is just the most lovely palette, and it does have 2 cream shades on the side as well in case you do want to use those as like liners or like your base. Those are really nice cream shadows, and I'm not even the biggest fan of cream shadows, and these are nice. They're perfect. I don't have the other 2 palettes that Patrick Ta has, but I knew I wanted this one to be the first. It's the most beautiful rosy neutral palette, and it is perfect for the month of February for Valentine's Day. I mean, it's perfect year round. All of these palettes are perfect year round, but it's just nice to be inspired by a holiday, or what, I guess Valentine's Day is technically a holiday. Depending on, I guess, how you look at it. I'm not the biggest fan of Valentine's Day, but I do like the colors. I do love the colors. I love pink so very much. So that's why I like for Valentine's Day to come around, because you can see all the pretty pink stuff everywhere. And of course, most of these palettes are going to lean more on that pinky side because I prefer the pinks over the reds, but that's just a personal preference. But all of these palettes are really beautiful, and all of them I feel like are really nice quality as well. Now here's a palette that I definitely think pulls more on like the berry side, and we have the Urban Decay Naked Cherry Eyeshadow Palette. I mean, talk about a classic here. I don't think they even still make this palette now, but I always loved it. It was one of my favorite palettes that Urban Decay had. This one, and then I do really love my Wild Greens palette from them. The Wild Greens palette would be my favorite palette, but I really liked this one too. I think this is just a really pretty palette. I know there's been many palettes that have come out that have like duped this. I believe Rimmel had one at one point. I'm not sure if they still make it. I don't know about Wet n Wild. I don't know if they had one or not, but if you have the original here, I don't know. I think it's really pretty. I haven't used it in a long time, so I feel like this is the perfect month to get some good use out of this palette. It had these really beautiful berry tones in here, so I cannot wait to start using this one again. Okay, this next one is a holiday palette from Kylie Cosmetics. This is like a 4-5-year-old palette. I think this was in 2019. I believe it was a collection that was just for Ulta. It just says Kylie on the front. And then when you open up, you have these really pretty pink tones. And what I liked about this palette is it also has this pop of hot pink in it too. So if you want to do a hot pink look for Valentine's Day, this palette has that option for you. And I just think that this was really nice palette overall. I know some people don't support Kylie Cosmetics. That's totally fine. I understand perfectly. But this one was already in my collection. I've had it for many years, so I did want to include it because I already bought it, and I need to get some good use out of it, and it is a really good formula. I don't know about her newer eyeshadow palettes that she's had recently. I think there's 3 of them. They're like more on the smaller side. I'm not sure about those, but this one was really nice. It was really easy to work with, and I love these more pinky neutral shades, but then I also love that you had like a black in this shade too, so you could easily deepen up a lot of these looks if you wanted to. I don't know. I just think it was a really pretty palette, and even though it was a holiday palette, I think it definitely would have been a really amazing Valentine's Day palette. The next palette should come as absolutely no surprise. The Natasha Denona Love Eyeshadow Palette. Her take on Valentine's Day, which I really love this palette because I feel like you have a little bit of everything. You have the pinks, you have the reds, you have the purples, these more like, you know, berry tones as well in this palette. I just think that this was, I don't know, like a little bit of a different take on Valentine's Day, and I like that because as you can see in all these palettes, I don't have one quite like this. I think this was a little bit more of a unique palette, especially because I don't really automatically think of purple for Valentine's Day, so I like that she included purple in these palettes, as well as the traditional Valentine's Day colors too. I just think this is a really pretty palette. I don't know if this palette is still available either. This might have also been a limited edition palette, but I think that if you love these tones, it's a really perfect one to have. Or maybe you already have it in your collection and maybe this will inspire you to pull it out and do some looks during Valentine's Day with this one. And I do really love Natasha Denona's formula, of course. I think she has one of the best formulas when it comes to like the more mainstream brands. I just really like the quality of her shadows, so definitely had to include this one. And this last one, I feel like this is probably a favorite for many people. This is the Huda Beauty Rose Quartz eyeshadow palette, and I just love this palette. It has these really pretty pinky tones in it as well, but I also feel like it has enough neutral shades in it that even if you're not a big fan of pink eyeshadow, that you can definitely create many looks out of this palette. I just think this is a beautiful, beautiful palette, and I just love looking at it in a swatch. Like when you see the swatches on the arms, they're just such stunning shades. Huda Beauty is another formula that I really, really love from the high-end brands. I think this is such a beautiful palette. Really, really gorgeous, and of course I had to include it for Valentine's Day. But also the packaging kind of reminds me of it too, with the pretty pink on the outside as well. Just simply lovely. But there you have the 14 palettes that I picked out for Valentine's Day. I do hope that you enjoyed today's video, and maybe it'll encourage you to shop your stash and pull out some palettes for Valentine's Day too. I mean, you know, regardless of whether or not you really care about Valentine's Day, I just think it's fun to just be inspired by different holidays or seasons when it comes to makeup. So that's why I wanted to do this video. But I do hope that you enjoyed today's video, and if you did, I hope you will please consider leaving a like, a comment, or subscribing if you haven't already. And please make sure to follow me over on Instagram at Jessica Dearly, and I hope to see you in my next video. Bye!